Yo, Bingy, yo, Okavanga, yo, you know Rastada, you know the whole team, you know, man. Listen, me, Yaga, if a boy ever this year for less than $1.
Just to differentiate it and make we understand, say, it's not a better life. It's just a mid towards financial opportunity.
But
You understand?
the person who needs or think they need that financial opportunity,
Sees it
they
as a
don't
better life.
separate. They can't separate the two,
Right, but we
because
need to.
remember, when they're talking about quality of life, for example, they're
Mhm.
talking they're talking
Financially.
about that based on financial
Mm-hmm.
ability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what they're talking about when they're talking about quality of life.
But
So
the
it's
reality isn't
hard.
so, Bingy.
No, but you
The
have
reality
to
isn't
be
so.
intellectual about that to understand what you're actually saying,
Hey,
right?
right.
For example, when you live in a country and you could go pick up fruit in the morning, get up, you can't pay for that.
That's
That you
quality
could
of
get up
life.
and go in the river in the morning and catch a fresh. You can't pay for that. You live by the beach, you can walk down to the beach and go fish. You can't pay for that, but
That's quality of life.
you don't understand that though. You think the
Mhm.
quality of life is having money.
Money. Mm-hmm.
This thing they call money. And that is what quality of life is. Now I can live in a different house then. I no longer live in a board house. I can live in a brick house.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you say, well, that's what I'll go for. But with that
Mm-hmm.
now, you have
Comes
all
problem.
these bills. You have
Mm-hmm.
all these taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
Mm-hmm.
keep up
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure. But you're not realizing that what you're working for, you're just
Mm-hmm.
coming in here one hand and going out the
Mm-hmm.
other too, right? So you don't really understand what quality of life really is,
Means. Mm-hmm.
except for what they sell you and they put it in a package. The
Mm-hmm.
package is you had to make money to live good. So
That's it.
people leave for that.
So
They
that's why
leave
we
for
have to
that.
differentiate it, Bingy.
Yeah,
So people are
yeah,
clear that it's
Yeah.
yeah.
not a
It's
So
better
not
life. You
that.
understand? Welcome to another episode of the Perfect Balance Chart class, a place where conscious minded individuals are guided towards the fulfillment of their true potential through collective reasoning. We have with us today Bingy, Okavango, the Rebel Guru,
yeah.
Teacher Ma'at,
I'm
Yaga.
rising.
I'm yours truly, Rasdada, and we are the Perfect Balance Chart class. Wagwan, my lad?
Yeah, man, we're there up on the trot,
Everything good, man.
Yeah,
Everything
man, it's a
blessed.
great energy. We give thanks to the
Give
movement,
thanks for
man.
life.
We want to have a little reason for the situation going on in Rwanda. We see a little move which have little glimmers of hope, but we want to really dissect it and see all the things that affect with it. So we want to start the reasoning talking about Rwanda and what's going on with Rwanda presently,
Yeah. I want to send our condolence to Kokoti
family.
family. The great Calvin Scott passed away recently. Wants to send our condolence
Yes,
to the
sir.
great man.
Yeah, man,
Yes,
What
sir.
trot
your
on in a
favorite
Zion
cockatoo?
Kokoti. You know,
What your
yeah,
Me
we
favorite
I go for
champion,
favorite
you know.
cockatoo?
Kokoti, you know.
Eh?
Holy Mount Zion, man.
Holy
We
Mount Zion.
champion, man.
Holy
Eh.
Mount Zion. I hear a place in come from Yaga.
Yeah, man, right across the river.
Zion, I might Kokoti there.
One of the greatest vocalists out of Jamaica, man.
Yes, sir. I'm
One of the
performer,
greatest.
Bridging.
Yeah,
But
man.
taking
Yeah,
Bridging for
man.
stage,
No,
man.
we
No,
never
God.
take him in
Yo,
yet still, but
don't
we
try
never
Well,
ramp
take him
with
in. We
Kokoti
never
time,
yo,
you know.
we watch him live, but we never take him in
well, we are gonna be.
yet.
And
Don't ramp with Kokoti time, you know, on stage, you know. You try if you cut in time, at trouble, you know.
Trouble. Yeah, man. Him not
Yeah,
yeah,
play with
man.
that,
Kokoti,
man.
man. The great Calvin Scott, man.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
it's
Yeah,
just
man.
sad that in the final years he wasn't so well, so we never really get an opportunity to see a lot of him on the road because him kind of ease off of the road for a while. It's a part of life and it's a part of the journey of this thing what we call life. So we do give thanks for the service that him provide because him provide an invaluable service. And it's a great energy. And it just sad because we didn't post it determined as well. Dropped the other day. Condolences to his family as well. And we see Danny English dropped the other day as well. Condolences to his family as well. So, it's just a sad time right now within the fraternity. But love goes out nonetheless. And the perfect balance chat class have you in their thoughts.
Yes,
For
sir.
Give
sure.
thanks,
For
Sweet,
sure.
sweet Kokoti, man. That is it, man.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, man, give thanks.
Right, man. You look by the way and say, boy, Rwanda go on great because Cause Rwanda must be clean when I clean this country now.
Yeah, and not only that, even for
Rwanda
migration
developed
and
fast, you know.
buying property for Africans outside of Africa,
Rwanda
Rwanda
one
is
of the
very easy. You could buy property in Rwanda right now
Me
online,
no,
unlike most African countries.
Rwanda, you know. Rwanda, you know, are one of the most advertised destination in Africa, and it seems like one of
Yes,
the
sir.
direct, you know. So pan the optics of it, like Rwanda seems like such a nice place, and them the president Kagame develop the country one type of way, or brand the country one type of way where Europeans I see the country as this beautiful
Destination.
the shining I said them call it, you know, or the shining light in Africa,
not only Europeans seeing it as a
Africans,
developing country.
yeah, yeah.
Until
Africans too.
recently, I was of that opinion before I start hearing other arguments putting
Mhm.
forward because
okay.
Kigame was pushing an agenda where he was defending values of Africa and African traditions and African culture. So it seems like somewhere along the line he has gone rogue in his personal pursuit of developing Rwanda and Rwanda sovereignty.
Yeah, and I want to tell you, say not even gone rogue, you know, as the same European tactics them I use, where yeah, see the beauty, but you not see the evil. You understand? At the same European tactics, because
The
just like
underbelly.
you say, I was at the same thing. I mean, I say, boy, we go Rwanda, go on, man, yo, Kagame, the man, because so me I say, you know, until me I follow Chakabar, I'm a listen Muta often. You understand? I mean, them I say, yo, Rwanda, go on with that big things. I mean, I say, yo, so my time and Muta chat be a fool in Charlie while. So me I say, me I burn out Muta, you know, and I burn out Chakabar, you know. But when me start really research the thing, because do I say so much time, I have to start research it. Because I say so much time. Because I remember when Kagame got Jamaica and Muta burn him wicked. I mean, I say, no, man, because me always have Kagame as this, and this a man if you run the whole Africa. You understand? Then we start looking to the thing and we start realize that Kagame is a talk about self-reliance for too long. Another self-reliance, a selfish reliance. He's a selfish person where him put Rwanda first, but at the expense of the
Other
wider Africa.
nations.
Big up the African dandy in a Kigali. See, me have a brethren that tried around there about 5 years ago. And it's only positive message and positive vibration coming out of Rwanda based on what is happening on the
I
ground.
think it's a
So
perspective, though. You choose what you want to really identify with, too.
Right,
You
yeah.
know, and part of that problem is having what we call second-hand information, right? Not
that
being there.
that is the art of the conflict. That
Yeah,
is
that
where the
that
art of the
is part of the
conflict is.
problem too.
You have a
Where
thing, you know. Go ahead, Yaga.
where the land and the boundaries that was drawn from colonial times have divided the people. You understand? Where people find themselves in a DRC, the Tutsi them find themselves in a Burundi. See? And the people are not accepted in DRC because DRC I say, yo, they are Rwandese.
Right.
But the fact that the land was there before and they existed on that land before, they are Rwandese, but the division and the boundary made them Congolese. And they are trying to establish themselves in Congo. And there's a pushback coming from Congo. There's a pushback coming from Congo, and Rwanda feel that they have to defend their people because it is their people. So that's at the heart of the conflict.
Personally, I think most of this is a front by Rwanda, because they mix tribes with with nationality, and nationality is kind of different from tribe, because the tribe cross boundaries, but nationality don't cross boundaries. You understand? So you have Tutsi both in Congo and in Rwanda and
Yes.
in Uganda and Burundi,
Yeah.
and you have Houthis in all over the place. But
Absolutely.
Rwanda is a little part, right? And they use those things to push the boundaries. They use those things to push the boundaries. You
It's
understand?
difficult to separate them.
Yeah, but
You can't
that's what
separate
I'm saying.
the people. The people you can't separate. Because the people are the people. But when you try and nationalize the people and make it seem like say, okay, because I am a Tutsi, if Tutsi over it's the same thing like what Russia doing, you know. Oh, we are Russian and Russian is over there, so we are
That's the
going
meat
over
of
there
the
to
matter.
protect Russia. So we could steal land.
That is the meat of the matter.
Yeah. So what he use tribal issues to push the boundary of Rwanda. Say, okay, because they are Tutsis, they are Rwandese. I don't really say it go. Tutsis, they are the country them. Tutsis, they are Uganda, them they are Burundi, them they are all over.
But you see what happened, you know, if you forward to like when we're talking about the perspectives, right? We use a word in our previous short class where we talk about being detached. And what you find happening is that people kind of detach themselves from a lot of the realities. No, my thing always active, brother. Yeah, so man say like we look at a word like being detached. Like people like to exist in them comfort zones, you know, right? So we find out now, like you talk about your brethren Yaga, where I say, it's the only positive things he have to say because in his experience, things that go good towards the things that what he must strive towards the things what him want to achieve and these things. So he must say, yeah, the thing I run good, the place nice, the place active. But when you look on the broader scheme of things, you see that a lot of injustices are occurring, as we examined in the when we spoke about the issues happening within the Congo with brother Gerard. And he told us all these things. He explained all of these things to us and the agenda and the mission which these people are on. And as we were talking about earlier, so we say, well, even though when on the face value, Rwandans kicking Belgian diplomats out of Rwanda on face value seems a very positive and good thing. But when you delve now into the actual story of it and you realize that the reason why this is happening is because Belgium is actually taking action against Rwanda because of its part in the Congo situation. And then now, as a result of them doing that, Rwanda is saying, okay, well, if you're doing that, we're gonna kick your diplomats out. So it kind of then negates the the positivity then of that move on my part. You understand? Personally, my personal view, my personal opinion. You know, so it's sad, really and truly. It's sad because at the end of the day, like we want to see things like African leaders, African nations, expelling colonial and European superpowers out of the country for the betterment of the country. But we want it to be done from a point of view of improvement and not just tit for tat, or you did this, so I'm gonna do that kind of thing.
And for the better of the continent, not just the
Yes,
country,
sir.
the
Yes,
better
sir.
of the continent,
Continent.
because
Yes,
that's one
sir.
of the biggest thing, because one of the thing with Rwanda, they are only seeing the better for themselves. And for themselves, they are doing great if they're just looking for themselves. But for the continent,
Sport.
having a conflict going on with stress across
For
the
so
conflict,
long.
no, and the stress across what, four countries?
For
Four
so
countries.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah, for so long.
For
You
so long.
understand? And hey, I remember that in this conflict, it's not just an argument going on. It's not people, you know what I mean? It's not verbal. People are dying.
All
People
right.
are dying.
This
Hundreds of thousands of people. Millions have died already. And hundreds of thousands are still dying. And it because it's not reported in the Western media what we get, the things what we get.
Yep.
It's happening. People are dying. People have to be moving from where they live. And that is what, when Rwanda back M23, that's what happened. The people who live in that area has to move and they have to uproot and with all their belongings and some of them who decide to fight for their land die. You understand?
Well,
So this what we are
well,
talking about. People are
this is
dying.
the
And we
same.
don't want that.
This is the same Brussels, Belgium, EU that signed a memorandum of understanding with Rwanda last year, just a year ago in February. 2024. Seeing?
Yeah.
For mineral rights, mineral
Mhm.
extractions and
Yeah.
purchasing of
Mm-hmm.
the minerals.
Mm-hmm.
But
That they know Rwanda don't have.
don't have. Seeing? But yet still, they've decided to do that. Now, the problem that we're seeing now with the expulsion of diplomats and the diplomatic spot is because Brussels have decided that they're going to support sanctions against Rwanda because of the conflict in DRC. And as Okovango has rightly said, their alignment with the M23. So when we look at what is happening here, the European Union, they are reviewing the memorandum of understanding with a view of suspending it until the situation improve on the ground. So they choose and play the sides that they want to play and support as and when it benefits and suit their strategic
As
and
always.
geopolitical interests. So
As
nothing has changed
always.
in that light. And the fact that Rwanda is kicking out the diplomats, we can see that in a positive light. It comes a bit too late and it comes under unfortunate circumstance, but nonetheless, it's a positive move for Africa. And we need more African countries to be taking the same stance. So now we've seen the French being kicked, the Belgians being kicked, the US get kicked as well in the Sahel and other countries. We need to see the British being moved up now. A move up time, so movements will go on and free up the country and control the resources.
All right, here this now, Yaga. You see, Rwanda kick out or cut diplomatic
Diplomatic
ties
ties.
with Belgium, right?
Yeah.
But the true backer of Rwanda
It's
is not
Belgium.
Belgium. It is
Is
not
it Brit?
Belgium. One of the biggest backer is the British.
Is it
One,
British?
and one of
And
the
the
main
US.
backer is France, and then you have the United
US.
States. So when they're kicking, when they kick out France, or kick out the United States, or the English, then we can start because guess what? The real ties that what make Rwanda powerful is those three countries, right? Rwanda protect France interest. Their army also protect France interest. They protect English interest in Africa, and United States get to get the minerals from them. You understand? So if they're not kicking out those countries,
Them not do nothing.
no, really, no,
Brother
it's
Paul,
really nothing. This is just for
Brother
face
Paul,
value.
Brother Paul lie in bed with the devil. You understand? And he's been playing it both ways. And time has caught up on him. So Africa will also have a say in this and how his judgment should be unfold. So, Brother Paul, get it right, brother. Get
But
it
not
right.
only that, right? I think just the move for Rwanda to expel these or cut these relations too, they also facing a consequence, right? As far as sanctions is concerned. So they're willing to take on those consequences, right?
No,
Um
they're
I
doing
wouldn't
this
say
because of the sanctions.
yeah, but I wouldn't say well. The sanctions came about after the relationship between Belgian, the Belgians and the Rwandans went bad. You know, the Belgians went to the EU, and they're the ones who pushed the
For the
EU to
sanctions.
pass sanctions
Right,
after the fallout. That's
That's
after
why
the
Rwanda
fallout.
said they're kicking out the diplomats.
Yeah, but that's all after the fall. That's all, that's after the fallout itself. But
Right.
it still has some positivity to it. And if we look at Rwanda as a country over the years too, right? And even refugees going to Rwanda and their open arms to either Eritreans or neighboring states, right? The Congolese, they have accepted a lot of these people, who the African neighbors who are in turmoil as well. So to say that they're not participating is not really true, right? And on a wider scale, instead of just having the interest of Rwanda alone. I think the politics is really hard to understand when you really don't have that insight on the ground. What we gonna ascribe to is taking a side to what more aligned with our principles. And I think that's really hard to do when you're looking at a country like Rwanda, who we know has been influenced by the colonizers and been controlled by the colonizers even after their so-called independence, right? Um, and I think that's true for a lot of African states, though, right? Not only Rwanda, but what we see happening here too. Keep in mind, M23 with the backing of Rwanda has taken one of the most important rare mineral reserves in the Congo as well, which is coltan. So we look at it as from not only a political but an economic view as well, right? What do they gain by this, right? Somebody is gaining something always doing these conflicts, right? Rwanda supporting this M23. It is for their
A
interests.
claim which Rwanda has denied several times.
Yeah, but there's no country in the world that is saying otherwise. Not even in Africa. African countries are saying, "Hey, we know you're supporting M23." There's no country in the world who is saying otherwise than that.
It's hard for them to deny that now.
Yeah,
Because even
yeah.
Kagame, I saw him in the interview, and it's hard for him to
He's brushing
to
that
deny
off.
it. Yeah, he
Yeah,
just brush it
yeah.
off because
He
he's
brush it
not
off.
saying no. When they ask him, he don't say no.
It's
You
complex,
understand?
but it'd be
Yeah,
nice
and
to
just go
know
around the
that
question.
they use these newly these wealth this wealth that they gain through this mineral reserve to better the region, right? We hope to see now, hey, with all this European influence, how do Africans really rule themselves then without these foreign intervention? How do they go about that? That's the real key here, to see how they move forward now. What do they do
But
next?
that's the point that we're making, that is not going to be without foreign intervention, because the
Well,
real
well,
backers
well,
are
that's what
still
I'm saying.
there.
Right.
The
But that's
real
what I'm
backers are
saying.
still
In the
there.
long run,
Mhm.
how do Africans rule themselves without foreign intervention?
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
the first step is that they have to have a plan. They have
Right.
to have a plan.
Right.
The
It
black
can't
print
be.
is
It can't
there.
be. eh,
The black print is there. We see what is happening in the Sahel region.
Yeah.
And the Sahel is thriving as a result of taking control of their resources and
Well,
controlling their sovereignty and forming alliances that benefit them. It is deep rooted in the historical fact that Belgium, the colonizer, has always been interfering in Rwanda's affair, which leads up to the 1994 genocide, which is at the heart of this conflict that we are seeing now.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And listen, you see, Rwanda, as I say, Rwanda is doing their thing, and the optics of it looks very good. So there's also what a lesson the other African countries can learn, that you can see that there's a pathway for development. There's a pathway for, the growth of infrastructure. Yeah, you know what I mean, to go, because Rwanda, they have done well for Rwanda. We look at it, they have done well for Rwanda, but the only thing is they is the people. They have no respect for the people them around them. You understand? So if they look at Rwanda, and because Rwanda is one of the first country who ban single-use plastic,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah.
yeah, one of the
Yeah.
first country, maybe the first country that ban. I can't remember. Maybe the first country that bans. It's
so,
one
so,
of the,
so that's why you have a soft spot for them.
I don't have a soft spot for them. Not in this time right now. But I can see the good work
Yeah, what
that
they
was,
do.
going
Yeah.
on. You understand? I
Remember,
can see
this
the.
has nothing to do with the people. This has nothing to do with the people, because the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
people are following the agenda, and the agenda is coming from above. So the people among themselves, I think the people don't have a problem among themselves.
Right. Right.
No, the people. I'm not saying that. We're talking about politics here
The
now.
government.
The government we're talking about. The
I'm just
Government.
making
government.
that clear to our
Oh yeah,
listeners,
man, yeah, man,
so
yeah, man, yeah, man.
that is
We
not
love
not
Rwandan people. We love
misconstrued.
Rwandan people, man. The government we're talking
Of
about.
course.
You know what I mean? Because we see where the government make certain move, and we see where we are, like everything you turn on your TV, you see Rwanda here lines advertised. they build up the country in a really in a way where people want to go to Rwanda. You know what I mean? Rwanda is a destination that people want to go. And
Considering what they've been through. Considering what they've been
consider
through.
one they've been to, because remember the genocide and stuff like that.
And I
Right?
think that
So
that plays a part in the aesthetics that you are talking about, where you see the visit Rwanda all over in Europe, all over it's being marketed and different club
man,
shirts and stuff like that. You know, and the British is pushing for some of these sponsorship deals to be suspended or withdrawn.
As a
So
result of the sanctions.
as a result of
Sanction.
the sanctions that are coming forth.
Yes.
So if you're gonna make that move against Belgium, I would like to see that move being made against the other players as well that is causing destabilization. So
But I think that's gonna
it's a
happen though.
step
That's
in
what
the
I'm
right
saying.
direction and it's coming. Wait for
I'm
it.
saying
Wait
that
for it.
I'm gonna say that's gonna happen though. If they going in that direction, then what we waiting to see is exactly that. What are you talking about? Where now they standing up against all these colonial powers, right? Not only Belgium, but I think as a result of the sanctions and these foreign interveners pushing for more sanctions like the UK, I think it's going to go that way anyways because the UK now is going to push against their interests, against Rwanda's
Rwandan
interests.
interest.
yeah.
So I think it's gonna have a natural effect, where
And
they're
this is
gonna now have to wake up and say, hey, well, we don't need to deal with none of all here. But
this is why I'm
That not gonna
saying.
happen. That
This
not
is
gonna
why I'm
happen.
saying. This is why I'm
right.
saying
Well,
that
that's
Otherwise, it's a joke.
that's what we
Paul is
want
a
to
joke
happen.
if that doesn't happen. He's not
Yeah, that's
serious.
what we want
But
to
that not gonna
happen.
happen. He need
No.
France, he need England, he need the USA. So once
because
them start
of
sanction
the
him,
position why I'm take up.
yeah, because
Because I'm take up.
if they start sanction
Yeah.
him,
That
which
and for
mine his
protection.
arm is gonna protect?
Yeah.
But
Because his army is protecting our
It's
minds for
easy for
France.
him. He align himself with his brothers in Africa. Align himself with the
But him already
No,
continent.
man.
alienate himself.
Yeah.
Him already
Remember,
alienate
Remember,
himself.
we have fight in our family all the time, Families war and fight all the time. But we
remember
can reconcile through conflict
remember,
resolution.
remember, him align himself with them, When him go into Congo and get the minerals, at them him ship it to, Remember, I think Rwanda is the leading producer of coltan in the world right now, With an African country to go to, because African country now really use coltan like that to make none right now. European and America and them country there, and maybe China too. You understand?
Yeah.
We say
The
if
African
align himself with
Union-
them. If that stop, warm to Rwanda. If
The
them can't
African
do it.
Them
Union-
economic position get damaged.
Yeah.
Them
The
economic position
African
get damaged.
Union is silent on the matter, and they should have played a greater role in resolving the conflict and organizing the union. They've got a plan, but that plan is up to 2050, where they are trying to organize the economies, the sovereignty, and trade between African countries. But it is slow in the process because the African Union, again, is sponsored and supported by external forces and colonial powers. So we have to start there as well, where we start removing these organizations and start supporting ourselves with the resources that we've got. They have to pay the current rate and the going rate for the resources that is available and that they want to purchase. Like we see that is happening in Burkina Faso.
African Union soft, man. Look at the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The European Union just look at it and say, okay, which side who is in the wrong, who's in the right, and they choose who's their right and who's their wrong, and say, are Ukraine you work with? And the whole European Union say, Ukraine, right?
Not the whole European Union.
Eh?
Not the whole European Union.
Who not say that?
Hungary.
Hungary is a talk, man, because they sanction too.
Them no sanction because them get exemption from the sanction, so them can still receive them energy supply because them depend on the energy.
That is sanction them was hundreds of sanction, Hundreds. But anyway.
Them still survive, man, but them not support the European Union and some other countries not support the European Union
But
as
even
well
that,
because of
As a
them national
position,
sovereignty.
the European Union
The
take that
majority,
position.
You,
at
European
least
Union,
the
right? So
majority.
yeah.
even though one country or two
The
countries, I say, right,
majority.
yeah, right. So we don't see the African Union come up with something like that. We say, okay, what we are support this, what we are doing, so you know what I mean?
What is
But
our
guess what?
position?
But that's what is going on. When them look over there and see, if we say we are sanction Rwanda, we are mess up our master thing, the US and France and Rare, you know what I mean? So them they don't want to go into that.
I'm not get involved in that because
Yeah,
it have implications, which brings us to the reason what Yaga said earlier, which I was
Dependency.
talking about,
yeah.
where we're saying
Dependency.
if the African nations go really make moves towards expelling their colonial powers, right? There has to be a strategic plan. It can't be just something that people do just as at a whim, or oh, this is happening, so we're gonna do this, or this is happening, so let's do that. You understand? It has to be that they have a tangible plan, and not just a plan for 5 years, but a plan for hundreds of years from now. You understand? By establishing connections with other African countries, right? Towards proper and efficient use and management of resources and control of said resources. You understand? These are things that we have to do. Them have to do that. Because we see even with the Zimbabwe situation where Zimbabwe was a thriving country, and as a result of the move, it affected them drastically. And I think that one of
Plan.
the reasons why this happened, that affected like this, was because of the
No
lack, I
plan.
think, of an effective plan, you know?
No
So
collective responsibility, no organization as a
right.
block.
So these are the things that we have to see in order for us to be able to form a opinion or position to say, this is how I see this going, So we have to
This
see
is the
things like that.
opportune time to do that because Europeans are now fighting for their survival. They are fighting for their survival because of resources all over the place. So we have to seek this
Yeah.
moment, we have to seek this opportunity and strike the iron while it
While
is
it's
hot.
hot.
But we see a nice movement too happening on the continent, right? Where now all these leaders who are rising against their colonial masters have to figure out how to develop their countries, but not only that, how to do bilateral trade, right? How do you make bilateral trade work on the continent like the IC? So part of that is development, right? Now, what they need to do is put in places manufacturing sectors, places, systems that now you could take this mineral that you have and refine it, right? You could build technology out of it. So it's development, but we
Yeah,
have to
man.
see that development working in the states as they develop, meaning, hey, as we say, Burkina Faso, for example, we have to see where she goes now in her internal development. Is she
Right.
building factories? Is she building depositories? Is she building the infrastructure? How is that infrastructure going within these countries now where you could develop to a point where you could now use these minerals that you have? Because you might have the minerals, but you have no means of extracting it. You have no way of refining it. You have no way of turning it into a product. So these are all things you have to see
Challenges.
happening, right? Yeah, how do
Challenges
we transfer this mineral wealth into something that's tangible and beneficial
to the
for
nation.
Africans across the continent? Not only your country, but across the continent.
You
And
know, you know.
I think that is a challenge because when you say Zimbabwe, for example, listen, man, you know Zimbabwe. We look at Zimbabwe as youths growing up, and we look at the struggle and all of this. But if you don't have a plan in place after you get rid of these people, you in trouble because what they're
Yeah.
going to do is sanction you.
They're going to do everything
And
to
when they
prevent your
sanction you,
uprising.
you can't do trade with nobody.
Nobody.
And
Nobody
side
doing
with the
trade with them.
opposition. They side with the opposition and destabilize the country. And the
Yeah,
people fall.
then destabilization. Then your money becomes worthless, right? And that's the
So,
other thing. How do these people determine what your money is really worth? The only
mhm,
reason why is because you're underdeveloped.
mhm.
That's the only reason why. Because if you were developed, you would say, hey, I don't need you. Hey, when you look at Gaddafi, for example, Gaddafi had an independent system, independent of the Europeans, where everybody went had education for free, where he provided grants or subsidies for people to live
Them thing
decent
they still go on
lives.
here, so brother. Them thing they still are going on here, so you know.
Yes, I. But that's the state we have to reach to where when we say, hey, we independent, we know we don't need any outside help.
But
And
one of the greatest challenges that we face as Africans is that most of our leaders were educated by Europeans and to European standards. Therefore, the positions that they hold and the agendas that they adhere to are pretty much driven by European values and ideas. So when they attain these positions of power, they push. Their push for development, their push for national independence then is seen through the lens of how do we do this with a connection to our colonial powers, as opposed to how do we do this on our own. So because of that, primarily, and then followed by that, most of our leaders, and this is again my opinion, we don't set long-term goals. We don't set long-term plans. Like for example, in our countries where we have like elections every 4 years, because they're so politically driven in terms of affiliation to a particular political organization or party, they only planning for like, oh, the next 4 years or the next 8 years or whatever they think they'll be in charge for. They're not looking to say, okay, let's put a sustainable plan for the next 100 years. That means whoever is in power can participate in the accomplishment or fulfillment of these goals. And these are like valid problems that we're facing.
but that's why it becomes important that when we recognize these leaders, like Muammar Gaddafi, for example, who is pushing for this African Union and this African independence, what they themselves are doing within their own territory, within their own countries, and how they develop in their countries
Hmm.
along
Yep.
this line of
Hmm.
so-called independence, right?
Right.
So where
Hmm.
you actually become independent and become a threat. Because when you
Hmm.
become independent now and self-reliant, you're a threat, you're a threat to globalization because
Hmm.
no longer can they take advantage of you.
Your
So,
resources.
so, 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 so we understand that too. But with our alliance and
Hmm.
coming together, it wouldn't be as easy for them to get rid of you either, right? It
Hmm.
wouldn't be easy for them to isolate you. So instead of having one country here, you have a whole continent.
Hmm.
Now that's where it becomes more valid. Your
Right,
plight,
because
your,
be-
your plight becomes more
mm,
valid.
because outside of even that, Bingy, remember, like if if we have a continent with over 50 odd nations
States.
within
Hmm.
the continent, right?
Countries, yeah.
There is nothing that any one of these countries could need that cannot be prepared and provided
Absolutely.
within the continent. So these
Absolutely.
are so we have to have so when we talk about a plan, we have to talk about even a plan of say, okay, survey the whole continent and see everything what we need on the continent.
And we have it.
We're gonna start with needs, right? We're gonna start with needs. We're not going to wants yet. Let's start with needs, right? And we say, okay, well, we have 50 odd countries. Which are the countries that can provide these needs? And we assign these things to them. And then the other countries get assigned other needs that they are able to provide and prepare. You
Hmm.
understand? And we grow and take it from there, brother. Yes, it's gonna be challenging. Yes, it's gonna be a little uncomfortable. Yes, it's gonna be probably
Really
there's our
challenging
hunger
that,
and
really
so.
challenging that because a lot of these countries they become so, because even though
Dependent.
we on the outside see Africa as one place,
They don't
really
see it
and
like
truly
that.
they don't see it like that.
Hmm.
You
No.
know what I mean? So
There's a
to come
mindset thing
together, if you
again.
come together and make it move in a one accord like that,
Mm.
it's
Difficult.
it's it's
No, no.
di-
Yes, sir.
You made mention of the leaders today that they studied in Europe. Kwame Nkrumah studied in Europe.
Yes, I.
Jomo Kenyatta studied in Europe.
Yes.
Mandela studied in Europe.
Mhm.
Nyerere
Even
studied in
more.
Europe. But
Mhm.
it didn't take away their Africanness from them and their African values from them and their African tradition. They
But
are
those are
Those
the
are
Africans
exception though.
minority.
at the core. And these leaders today probably saw what has happened to them. They picked them off one by one, being intimidated and frightened by that. They've decided to take a position. They've decided consciously to take a position that is, they're going to represent their own interests and they are going to represent their masters. So that is not an excuse for them
No, it's not.
to
But
be
we're
doing
saying
what
that
they are
this is one
doing.
of the reasons
They
why
need
they
to remember
formulate
that they
those
are
mindsets.
Africans first and foremost.
Yeah. Yeah, Okabongo, you was in the middle of saying something.
Yeah, I forgot. But me I go
So what you
how
got
you
to
gotta
say?
say. Ibrahim Traore
Yeah.
said he's gonna ban the scholars from going to study abroad. And I think that's a beautiful
Excellent move. Yeah, man.
because the brain drain. A lot of countries all over the world where your brightest people go abroad to study. Most times they don't come back.
No. No. No.
Most times they don't come back, and it create a brain drain in the country because now your best minds gone to work for these European countries.
Not only the ones who go to study. Not only the ones who go to study, because the one who study locally as well is looking for a better life, and we feel that to find a better life, we have to live up to find a better life and go somewhere. And we talk
Let me say
about that
something
with
to you,
Nadine,
Yaga.
that a lot of times when this happens, we don't find that American dream, we don't find that European dream. You know?
Yaga.
And we are living in worse conditions.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Yaga. I want we get in the mindset, you know, of adjusting this thing what we are saying. Because like we reason with Nadine yesterday, and she kept saying it, you know. Where she said, it's not I want to have a better life, but for greater financial opportunities. And it's time we really start to differentiate that, because as you're saying, we don't end up with a better life.
Yeah, but you're not thinking that. You're thinking that
That's why
financial
I'm saying.
opportunity brings you a better life.
That's why we're saying
Yes, I.
we need to differentiate it.
Yes, yes.
So that the soul, and she said several times yesterday, you know.
Yeah.
She said several times that the reason yesterday, and I said, yo, you know, it's a real thing. Yeah. So, you know, just to differentiate it and make we understand, say, it's not a better life. It's just a mid towards financial opportunity.
But
You understand?
the person who needs or think they need that financial opportunity,
Sees it
they
as a
don't
better life.
separate. They can't separate the two,
Right, but we
because
need to.
remember when they're talking about quality of life, for example, they're talking they're talking
Financially.
about that based on financial ability. You know, that's what they're talking about when they're talking about quality of life.
But
So
the
it's
reality is them
hard.
so bingy.
No, but
The
you have
reality
to
is them
be
so.
intellectual about that to understand what you're actually saying, right?
Right.
For example, when you live in a country and you could go pick up fruit in the morning, get up, you can't pay for that.
That's
That you
quality
could
of
get up
life.
and go in the river in the morning and catch a fresh. You can't pay for that. You know, you live by the beach, you can walk down to the beach and go fish. You can't pay for that, but
That's quality of life.
you don't understand that though. You think the quality of life is having money. This thing they call money. And that is what quality of life is. Now I can live in a different house then. I no longer live in a board house. I can live in a brick house. Right? And you say, well, that's what I'll go for. But with that now, You have
Becomes
all
problem.
these bills. You have all these taxes. You have to keep up infrastructure. But you're not realizing that what you're working for, you're just coming in here one hand and going out the other too, right? So you don't really understand what quality of life really is,
Means.
except for what they sell you and they put it in a package. The package is you had to make money to live good. So
That's it.
people leave for that.
So
They
that's why
leave
we
for
have to
that.
differentiate it, Bingy.
Yeah,
So people are
yeah.
clear that it's
Yeah.
Yeah,
not a
it's
better
So
not
life. You
that.
understand?
back to the Rwanda thing. Rwanda Congo conflict. We are calling for a ceasefire. You know what I mean? Some dialogue need to go on because the people who are losing their life, that's the biggest thing going on. You know what I mean? People are looking at minerals, people are looking at the land, but I'm about the people. And that's the biggest casualty. We see a lot of people
Chiskedi
understand.
and
So we need
Kwame met in Qatar earlier this week.
Right.
So we hope that is a step in the right direction, even though the M23 is absent from the discussion. And you cannot have a conflict resolution without having all the parties
All parties.
present at the table to have that
But
discussion.
all parties are present at the table. Rwanda is there.
Rwanda
Rwanda
is there.
Unless you're a
M23 is
Donald.
there. Yeah, they
Unless you're
all
a Donald.
parties.
Unless you're a
No,
Donald.
well, you what? No. You what? No. It's like them a play copy. So even though them a play copy, them still have to be there. You understand? Because as long as they're not there, them have that excuse to say, oh, we weren't a part of it, so we're not holding to that agreement. You know?
Well,
So
I think what we need to see out of all of this is what really happens from here, right? How does Rwanda benefit from all of this, the expulsions, the gaining of territory within the Congo? How does all of this develop in the long run for the benefit of Rwandans, right? Her citizenry and the neighboring countries around her. I think that is the key aspect here. Even though we might say, "Hey, Rwanda, this, that," we need to see where do they go in the future now. Like, what happens next then, right? So, kicking out of these Belgian diplomats is one thing, but when do they go next? What's the next step? I think that is very
Personally,
important
what I see happening if this don't stop, we are seeing Rwanda become the
in the
Israel
region.
in the region where no country around the region like them. They seem to be striving and highly backed by the Europeans and the West. And but guess what? It's constant war forever, non-stop war. Because if they don't pull back, it's gonna be war forever. Kids gonna grow up and know that Rwanda take away their land and they're gonna keep fighting. The fighting gonna go on forever, just like what we're seeing going on in Palestine. You understand? So we are calling for a ceasefire. The M23 to throw down their arms and some solution to this problem. People are losing their life and we don't like that. We don't like to see conflict in Africa. We want to see Africa move away from this conflict and start building. They can't have building when war is going on.
because
Because war
war
is
is an act of
destruction.
destruction.
Yeah.
War is an act of destruction. Yeah, man, give thanks for the moment and the reasoning, the passage of time, Give thanks for the item. Bingi, Okavango,
Yes,
the
sir.
Rebel
That's
Guru,
right.
Yes, I.
Yaga, aka Teacher Atam, yours truly, Rasdada. Do remember to like, share, and subscribe. We're on the road to 1K. Let's make it happen. Short classes, give thanks.
I said the perfect balance, third class. I don't know, see, I talk for the living for this represents. Good over evil, me tell them, see a life over death. I swear, said I will never switch. Keep the fire burning out. Holy Manuel, I Selassie, Jah, blazing fire.